Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're tuning in from. Welcome to the Winning at Being You podcast. I'm your host, Coach Mills Rogers. This is a space where we have real conversations with people who are using their voice, their experiences, and their purpose to create impact, not just for themselves, but for others. Today, I am super excited to be joined by Timothy TalkManTalk Stewart. We're going to talk about leadership, transformation, and what it actually looks like to win at being who you are without pretending or performing. If you're watching live, feel free to drop where you're watching from in the comments. Now, let's get into it. Timothy Stewart, aka Talk Man Talk, is an author, speaker, coach, and recovery advocate whose work focuses on helping people free themselves from destructive patterns and discover purpose. Timothy regularly leads seminars and presentations geared toward audiences big and small on topics related to addiction, recovery, leadership, goal setting, and personal development. Unafraid to share details of his own personal battles with addiction, pain, and loss, his captivating style and ability to shine light on life's possibilities, delivered from having hit rock bottom, make him a sought after guest at a variety of events. He is also the author of Free Yourself from Yourself and the creator of the Unlock Your Greatness course. Talk Man Talk. Glad to have you this morning.
Yes, sir, Coach Mills. I am glad to be here, and thank you so much for that introduction. That was, man, I really appreciate that, and I want to just applaud you for the work that you do. I follow you quite a bit, and I'm still learning, and so I appreciate all that you do, and especially this platform. I think that this is I call it a solution focused type of conversation.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. And yes, we definitely want to focus on solutions as opposed to just talking about problems. Too much of that in the world already.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And as we kind of had a conversation yesterday, uh, there, we have some people, and I'm not knocking anybody who is trying to make an honest effort to bring about change and progress in our society and communities. However, uh, without the how, without showing people how, we can preach all day, right, of what needs to be done. But until we unpack it, the steps of how to create that change and how to bring about that progress, very little is gonna movement is gonna happen.
Hmm. Very true. Very true. And so, Tim, for people who may be hearing you for the first time, who is Timothy Stewart and what life experiences most shaped the man you are today?
Okay, so I'm originally from North Carolina. I grew up on a 500-acre farm, country boy at heart, right? And I graduated high school. I went into the military and the Air Force, and I've had an opportunity to work in corporate America with some major corporations like IBM and UPS. But I started smoking marijuana at 12 years old, and what has shaped me to become the person that I am today, to be honest with you, it's called
Mm,
pain and loss, right? I became addicted. I abused drugs and alcohol for over 25 years of my life, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to still be here. There's a lot of people who were where I've been that are no longer here today. And so April the 30th of this month is 22 years free from active addiction for me. So that's, to be honest with,
congratulations.
yeah, thank you. That is one of the, I guess, powerhouses that I have, or confidence builders that lets me know what I practice, coach, and promote works.
Mm.
I'm a witness, as they say.
Yeah. Hey, hey, life experience, man, and the fact that you overcame that and are still overcoming it, that's powerful.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
You know, I don't deal with the desire to use any substances today. My root problem, and that was what happened. I went to rehab 12 times, and because I continued to focus on what it, you know, the symptom and not the problem. I thought the drugs and the alcohol were the problem. They were not the problem. That was a symptom. The root cause of my problem was my thinking. See, at 12 years old, when I started smoking marijuana, I developed it helped me develop my coping mechanism. Anything that didn't go right in my life, or any kind of pain, emotional pain, or anything that I felt that was out of the way, I use marijuana as my escape. I could get away from it, and that became how I dealt with a lot of different situations through my adulthood. And so I'm just really grateful that at 40 years old, I had the opportunity to unlearn and relearn. I, Coach Mills, I could survive. I could exist. You could drop me off in Egypt somewhere, and I'd make it. I did not know how to live, my friend. I had to learn and be taught how to live at 40 years old. That's a hard pill to swallow.
Well, let me ask you this. I've had a few guests that have had their issues with severe addiction. And so I love to ask them this, and the answer just always varies. Was there a moment when you're like, man, the light just came on? Like, I got to change, because I've
Yeah,
had some guests there that are like, yeah, it wasn't that one moment. And then there's some that were like, yeah, it was that one moment.
it was a moment for me. I had been through rehab 11 times, and my family had just kind of given up on me. I actually gave up on myself, and
Mm.
I had a daughter at that point. I had my first daughter, and I would be playing with her and looking at her, and I would leave. I wasn't one of those people that brought what I did in the street home. I stayed in the street. I didn't come home, right? And I'd be looking at her, and it was like, man, I don't want my daughter to grow up and people say, your dad's a crackhead. Man, for
Mm.
some reason, that just, man, I didn't want to accept that. And then one day, I went in my mom's office, and this was that defining moment. She said, son, I love you. I'll always love you. I do not like the lifestyle that you're living. And I want you to know I bought a $10,000 insurance policy to bury you with this morning because you ain't gonna make it.
Wow.
Look, at that point, as they say, at that moment, I said, "Boy, it's time to do something different." And I made a decision. I said, "You know what? I'm gonna give treatment one more time. I'm gonna give it one more shot, but I can't do it here." And so I was in New York at the time, and I bought a one-way ticket to California, actually, and got on the bus at Newark Penn Station and headed to California. And I got scared, and I was like, "Man, California, I don't know. I've never been there before." And the bus stopped at Indianapolis, and we changed buses. And when we were ready to board again, on the front of the bus, it had St. Louis. And I said, Fred Sanford always talked about going back to St. Louis. Seriously, man, I remember it just like yesterday, man. It's like, that's where I'm going, St. Louis. And I landed at St. Louis at 40 years old with two pair of pants, two shirts, and about $8 in my pocket. Didn't know a soul, had never been there, and started all over again. Yep.
Amazing. Wow. And so let's kind of transition this. Your whole brand is built around the idea of free yourself from yourself. And it's gonna probably tie in. This question is gonna tie into what you just talked about. What does that phrase really mean to you?
Well, what I had to come to the harsh realization, Coach Mills, is that I was my own problem. I was my worst enemy, and it was my thinking, right? I had adopted some mindsets over the years. I had been given some information that was not the most accurate information. And I made decisions based on that information and it produced bad results, right? And what I came to realize is that, yeah, I could make excuses. I could be the excuse king, or why this didn't work for me, why this happened to me, and why this and why that, right? And it's because of my dad, my uncle, my mom, but when I had to face reality and I had to make that harsh admission that I am my worst enemy, I needed at that point to free myself from myself. It's a mindset. I had to unlearn and relearn. That's the premises behind free yourself from yourself.
Why do you think people avoid, I guess, being accountable? Because I think that's what it's coming down to.
Well, as humans, we are creatures of habit, right? And so it's hard to break habits. And when we adopt, when and we can get into human functionality. And what I mean, Coach Mills, is that, and I'm sure you know this, is that we really have two minds. We have a conscious and a subconscious. Our conscious mind is fed by our senses, sight, sound, taste, smell, touch, right? And when that same information comes across our senses over and over again, it gets downloaded into our subconscious, right? And that's where automatic functions happen, like heart rate, breathing, eye blinking. We don't even have to think about those things. And it's the same way when a person habitually practices, for instance, I'm going to give you a call, I'm going to call you back. And they say that over and over again and they don't do it. It it happens. They don't even think about it, and it doesn't happen until somebody, maybe calls them or holds them accountable for that behavior or the consequences. You know, one of the things, Coach Mills, was for me getting loaded um, was no longer enjoyable for me. I was addicted, right? I mean, you're talking about somebody that would get scared, right? Really paranoid. How Scarface say paranoia, right? That was me. But I continued to put myself in that situation because I didn't know any other solution to deal with the pain. So basically, it was a vicious cycle. I would do something today that wasn't about me. I hated it, and tomorrow morning when I woke up and thought about what I did yesterday, I needed to medicate that pain, and
Mhm.
that vicious was a vicious cycle, right?
So,
And
so let me ask you this though. A lot of times people be like, well, I do this because I was raised a certain kind of way, because of my daddy or because of my mama or whoever else. And so they pretty much put their responsibility on those people.
uh-huh.
I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's called the blame game. I did that for many years, and it takes a person like free yourself from yourself to get to the point where they see that okay, the consequences from behaving this way um, requires me to make a change. Until the pain of remaining the same becomes greater than the fear of change, then and only then do we change. Change is challenging.
Mm, mm,
Change, people fear change. They're comfortable. We're comfortable in how we've been operating. And if it doesn't cause any life damaging consequences, we deal with it, right? Um, and it's amazing how we can become trapped, as I call it, in certain mindsets that we can clearly see do not produce the most positive results, yet we continue to practice
mm.
because we
It's
fear change.
yeah, good stuff. So you've obviously had a big turnaround in your life. Your life just went in a different direction once you made that decision to change.
Uh-huh.
And so how did that process go as far as, I know you went to treatment
Uh-huh.
that last time and things changed for you. So how did that transition from having gone to treatment to becoming somebody that helps people overcome addiction?
Well, what the as again a defining moment was when I had the revelation, Coach Mills, that drugs and alcohol were not my problem. I had landed in St. Louis. I had to sleep in the homeless shelter for 2 weeks before a bed became available for me at the treatment center, at the VA. And the night that they took me to the VA, it was after they had had dinner. So they were going to give me dinner, but everybody else had already eaten. So I was in the chow hall all alone, and I'm sitting there, and I'm in a lot of pain, my friend. Tears are coming down my eyes. I'm 40 years old. I've been homeless before. I've been in treatment before, but now I'm 1,200 miles away from everybody I know. I'm missing my daughter. I'm in this position again, and I got mad, and I hit my hand on the table, and I said, God, why does this keep happening to me? And I got the revelation. It was like God spoke to my spirit. Drugs and alcohol are not your problem. Now, that was a revelation for me because I've been pretty smart, right? I've been in the military. I went in the Air Force. I've worked in corporate America. I can't be, you know, like not have good sense, right? I've done well academically, right? Even professionally. But it was because the next statement was your way of thinking is your problem. And so then I'm sitting there, Coach Mills, and I'm like by myself, and I'm like, I'm having this conversation. I can call it God, I can call it my consciousness, whatever we could call it. But I'm having this conversation. I said, well, how do I change my thinking? And it was like, get in line with this book, get in line with this word that's written in this book, the Bible. At that point, some hope came into me. Right then, Coach Mills, because it was like, okay, it's kind of like this. If you have a yard and you have a weed outside, I mean, you have a weed growing up in your lawn, and you break that weed off at the top of the dirt. 2 days later, you come back, that weed is right back. But if you pull that weed up from the root, it's not coming back. And that's what happened when I had that revelation that the drugs and the alcohol were not my problem, and my mind, my thinking was my problem. I got the weed from the root. So I started studying, reading the Bible. I mean, I became a student of Scripture, right? And I know there's a lot of talk about who wrote the Bible and when it was written, and that really none of that matters to me because what I've learned is the principles that I have learned that are written in that book have changed my life. That's what matters to me, the results, right? I don't know who wrote it. Nobody in our generation knows who wrote it. We can speculate, right? We can say, we don't know, but the principles work. And here was what was to give you an example of the shift in mindset. When I was being raised, I was taught it's okay to do a little wrong, just don't get caught. That was my philosophy. And man, let me tell you something, I was good at it, right? I could take, if you wrote D on a piece of paper, I could steal the T, you wouldn't even see it, and you'd be left with he, right? And so I went from that philosophy to when I left the chow hall that night, I went to my room and there was the desk drawer there, and every hospital has a Bible in it, a Gideon Bible, right? So I pulled out the drawer and there was one in there, and I started reading, and I got down to Genesis 1:10. I think it's 1:10 or 1:6, and and it says what did it say? It says, and God said, let every seed produce after its own kind. And I had another revelation, and this was the revelation that changed my life, Coach Mills. Words and deeds are just like seed. They always produce after their own kind. That was a new philosophy for me. That now I downloaded a new software that overrode what I had
Mm.
been working with, and that started the process of change for me. From it's okay to do a little wrong, just don't get caught. To words and deeds are just like seed; they always produce after their own kind. I still live by that philosophy today. That don't make me perfect. I fall short, but I understand. Right? When I don't do the right thing, consequences are coming. You can count on it.
Mm. So you also call yourself Talk Man Talk, and
Uh huh.
so I'm curious: is that nickname? Is it Talk Man Talk, or is it Talk Man Talk?
Well,
Like,
if
what
well,
does it
the
mean?
how that came was at 45 years old. I had now remember I landed in St. Louis at 40, sleeping in the homeless shelter. At 45 years old, I am now married. I'm living in a 2,400 square foot home. I am a responsible, productive member of society. I've never been clean this long in my life since I was 12. I'm 45 now. I am just like I woke up one Saturday morning. My wife at the time, she had gone to work, and the house was just like one of those Saturday mornings when it's kind of the sun is out, and it's you're looking. I'm looking around, and I got a cup of coffee in my hand, and it was like, wow, how did this happen? And it's like, okay, well, what am I gonna do now? I've been struggling trying to stay clean and stuff, and now 5 years clean. I'm in this home. I'm working, and I had this revelation. You always like sharing information. Why don't you become a speaker? And I said, oh, yeah. And so I've always been a Michael Jordan fan. And so when Mike came in the league, I mean, a serious fan of Mike's, right? I grew up in a hometown where he used to live as well. And so when Mike came in the league, he was jump man jump. I said, I'm going to be talk man talk. Yeah. And what happened was what I eventually discovered was talking is my gift. That is my gift. And every human being comes to this planet with a gift trapped inside of them. And that gift is our source of significance. It's our sense of value of what we were created to bring into our generation. That's what changed my life because now, okay, I've been clean 5 years. Now I've discovered what my gift is. Guess what? I ain't gonna smoke no dope to destroy my gift. I know why I'm here now. I'm here to share information and help other people, you know, um, get into this process of being free from active addiction. So, like I said, nowadays it's not about the desire. I don't have any obsession or compulsion to use any kind of chemical. My goal now is to make good decisions every day to the best of my ability. That's it. Life is a series of decisions. Now, I filter those decisions through the 12 principles that saved my life: honesty, hope, faith, courage, integrity, willingness, humility, discipline, forgiveness, acceptance, awareness, and gratitude. That's where the work comes in, my friend. It's filtering those decisions, my decisions, filtering them through those principles. That's where the challenge is every day in every area of my life.
Do those principles tie into the course that you created? I know you have this Unlock Your Greatness course, and so are those Is that like a theme of the course, or is it kind of integrated in some form or fashion?
It is the absolute theme of the course because those 12 principles, and let's define a principle for our audience so that we are all on the same page. Effective communication requires concepts that are the same. If the concept in your mind, when I say a word is different from the concept in my mind, then we'll have a misconception, right? So,
Yes.
principle. A principle is a fundamental law that guides our decision making process, empowering us to live a lifestyle of integrity and morality. A principle is in Principles are inherent in creation. They were here when we got here. We didn't create them. God created them, the universe. We didn't create. They are not man-made. Nobody creates honesty. Nobody created faith. They were here when we landed here. They are universal. They will work in New York, LA, or Japan. They are non-partial. They will work for black people, white people, red people, tall people, short people, any kind of human. And
I,
they
I
are
love and I
uh,
love that you said, and boy, that's very thought provoking what you just said, that nobody created honesty.
nobody.
Nobody created integrity. Wow, that's powerful right there.
And I had to learn that, right? That's what I had to learn, get an understanding of these principles so that I could apply them. And then, like you said, the 12 principles are the cornerstone of what free yourself from yourself and unlock your greatness. Because do you know, Coach Mills, that these principles represent the most powerful government on the planet?
Hmm.
Do
Most
you know what
powerful.
the
No,
most
go ahead.
powerful the most powerful government on the planet is not democrat democracy or republican or dictatorship. The most powerful government on the planet is self-government.
Mm,
That's what I had to do. I had to govern myself. I had to learn how to govern myself. That is what produced the change in my life. Period. Point blank.
hmm. And so relating that to your unlock your greatness course, um, you're pretty much teaching whoever takes the course self-government.
Yes, well, here's what it's designed to do. It's designed to help individuals identify their gift so that they can discover their purpose. And now we teach them 12 principles to protect both their gift and their purpose. Because we've seen people who identified their gift, they discovered their purpose, but their gift destroyed them because they didn't have the 12 principles, like Marvin Gaye, Whitney Houston. We've seen people
Mm,
with powerful gifts destroy them because they didn't have the 12 principles. So the course is full circle because, see, the formula for success for any human being on planet Earth. I was listening to someone the other day and they said, this thing is deep. No, it's not deep. It's very simple. And I think in a lot of cases in our society, we've become too deep where people don't understand it. And sometimes that's intentional, right? But
well, I used to listen to this one guy, Joe Madison, on the radio. I don't know if you ever heard of him,
no,
but he was an activist. He was on Sirius XM, and he always said, "You got to put it where the goats can get it."
I
Hmm.
like that. Right. I
Yeah.
like that. And it's the same for 8 billion people on the planet. I'm going to give the secret right now. Is to discover your gift, train that gift, and then serve that gift to the world. That is the formula for success for every human being on this planet. We all come here with a gift. Everybody. And okay, let's define gift. It is the inherent capacity to fulfill a function that meets a need in creation. I say it one more time. The inherent capacity to fulfill a function that meets a need in creation. See, Coach Mills, your gift is not for you. Your gift is for me. I need your gift. My gift is for somebody else. Like mechanic. I need his gift when my car is not working. A dentist. I need that person's gift. See, we were created to be interdependent, not independent.
So let me ask you this, because you mentioned a couple of, I guess, big names, stars,
Uh
like
huh.
Whitney Houston, for example,
Uh huh.
who, of course, very successful as far as her singing career, but was troubled. And
Yes.
so what you're talking about, how would that apply to somebody like Whitney Houston? How would that have applied to them
It was
or
so
to her?
unfortunate that that gift was taken from us. And I can tell you, like, I wish I'd have had a chance to talk to Whitney and even Bobby Christina. That was so, man, because and I'm gonna say this: a lot of people want the solution to come from out of the sky. This deal called life is not a magic trick. It doesn't happen by osmosis. Success does not happen by osmosis. You know, Coach Mills, you are an entrepreneur, you're a speaker. We were just talking. Nobody just rings the phone off the hook for you to come. You've got to do some work, man. And I was listening to the interview before Whitney died. She was with Oprah, and she said, and I'm not knocking belief systems. Everybody has the right to their own belief system, right? But she says, God's got this. And I think Whitney had a sincere desire to change, but she didn't get introduced to the principles. She didn't. Well, let me say, I won't say she didn't get introduced to them. She never took the opportunity to understand and apply them. Because
Mm.
look, I was no better. I look at Bobby right now. Bobby is doing great, man. He made it out. I'm gonna tell you something. That dude, that brother is a. You want to talk about a miracle? Bobby Brown is a miracle, brother. And so, that's what I would say to anybody. Again, to answer your question, Coach Mills, and we see this a lot. There's a lot of programs in our society that treat the symptom. Like if my hand if there's pain in my hand, the pain is not the problem. It is a symptom that there is a problem. We say we have an opioid epidemic. That's the wrong focus. Do you know what the number one common issue is of people that I work with as a life coach, especially since COVID? The number one most common issue. Any idea, Coach Mills?
Number one common issue, man. I like that question. I was trying to think about it as you were saying it. I'm going to, oh man, I would say discipline, self-discipline. No.
No, the number one most common issue people suffer with is they don't know why they're here. They do not know who they are.
That makes sense.
So if I don't know who I am, I don't know my purpose, then I don't know my value. If I
Hmm.
don't know my value, I'll put myself in situations and circumstances and environments that don't mean me any good because I don't know my value. I just saw a month or so ago this young lady attacking a teacher, right? And it was so sad to see this. And most people say, "Yeah, she needs to be beat, and she needs discipline." That's what we saw was a symptom. Her behavior was a symptom. It's not the problem. Her
In
problem.
situations like that, I find that people often want to do something that makes them feel good. So
That's exactly right.
those consequences, like, oh, she needs to be beat, that makes
That
them
person
feel
feel
good.
good. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It does
doesn't
nothing
solve
for the
anything.
for the for the root problem. The root problem is that young lady doesn't know her value. And what was so sad also about that scenario, that scene, Coach Mills, is that the other kids, they looked at it as entertainment. Nobody
Mm.
approached that kid and said, "Hey, you out of order." Nobody. None of her peers said, "Hey, wait a minute, come on now. That's not right." So we have a generation that that we need to get a focus on, and we need to stop expecting to practice things that never worked to produce a different result.
You
That's
know, and I
insanity.
yeah, and I like what you said that that never worked because I mean, being having been an educator and of course a parent and that sort of thing, people talk about well the good old days and blah blah blah, and I'm like, I've told kids when I've had assemblies, I say, hey, look, there was people acting the fool back in the '80s and whatever else. I had classmates that were bad.
Yeah.
you know,
Uh
they
huh.
were, they
Right.
were doing some stuff, and it's funny because now you see them on, you see these same people that was acting the fool in school on social media talking about, oh, this, these kids nowadays, and I'm like, wait, what? You, like, man, you was crazy. Shoot, what are you
Right.
talking about?
Yeah.
And so yeah, some of these things they never really worked. It's
Yeah.
just people matured over time,
Yeah. We don't
20,
want to.
30 years.
So many people don't want to accept reality. Man, that was one of the things that I had to do, Coach Mills. Reality is not how I hope or wish or think things should be. Reality is how things actually are, right? And beating kids is not the solution to produce the most positive results. The statistics even show that
Mhm.
it causes trauma. I got beat, right? And for a lot of years, I had a resentment, right, with my parents because I got beat so much. But I had through this process, I was able to develop um, respect for my parents because they gave me the best that they knew. That's
Mm,
what they knew, right? Well, guess what? We live in the age of information and technology now. There's no excuse. When we know better, we should do better. And I've been in the prisons to speak, man. And I'm gonna tell you, Coach Mills, it'll take your heart, man, to see so many people who look like us locked down. But yet,
mhm.
we practice some of these traditions and these rituals that had never worked, and we still promote them. We got to do something different. My course is something different.
Hmm, mm. Man, I commend you for that, man. I mean, it just the way you just framed that, I love that you're like, hey, this is something different because yeah, that other stuff, most of those guys that's in prison, they got beat.
Sixty
You know, that
percent statistics show that 60% of the males who
hmm
are incarcerated were physically abused as a young kid.
hmm
Yeah, 60%.
Yeah.
But
I
yet we want
mean,
to still promote that. Come on, man. We got to do. We got to get away from that. We got to do something different because in our society today, you know this. What's the new buzzword? Outcomes. Let's look at the outcomes. Right? The results are not favorable. So
yeah,
why continue to promote a program that doesn't work?
yeah. Because again, people want to do what feels comfortable to them, and it's a tradition or
Yeah.
ritual, and they
Uh,
believe it made them into who they are today. But then they're not realizing that, hey, maybe if there was a different approach, maybe it wouldn't have taken you as long to figure
Bingo.
something out.
Bingo. I tell you a story. A couple years ago, there was this story in New York about this guy who came home and found his 16-year-old daughter in the bathroom having sex with her boyfriend, right? And the reason it made the news is because he beat the boyfriend half to death and beat his daughter, right? And
Mm,
so, of course, they locked him up, and they should have. And I said, here's an example of how we have missed the mark. What should have happened? You want me to tell you what should have happened, Coach Mills? What should have happened is he should have laid the belt on the table and let them beat him because he did not teach his daughter her value. He missed the mark. And that's what is the problem. A lot of people don't want to accept the responsibility for the part that they played.
Mm.
For an example, we got to understand human functionality, Coach Mills. I use this example. So a young girl is getting ready to have her cycle, 12, 13, 14, I don't know what that age is. And the parents say, okay, it's time for us to have that talk. So they sit her down, they had this talk about sex and, whatever that talk is. And the parents get up. Okay, we've had that talk. She is now good to go. Well, you got new addition over here, Bobby, Mikey, uh, 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 and these boys, Bobby, Mike, Ricky, uh,
Yeah.
they talking every day. Every day they talking. They at her every day. They in her ear. Guess what happened to the talk that the parents had? It gets drowned out, and then she comes up pregnant. The parents should have been talking more than Bobby, Mikey, and them. That's human functionality. Coach Mills, you have a yard, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know the best way to keep the weeds out of your lawn?
Plant good grass.
Plant good grass. That's one way. Some people say pull them up. Some people say
Mm-hmm.
spray them. But the best way to keep the weeds out of your lawn is to sow the grass seed so thick that the weed seeds can't take root.
Mm.
So if the parents are talking every day and they're talking more than Bobby, Mikey, and Bobby and them, then she's not gonna come up pregnant. It's got to start. And unfortunately, we see this a lot of times. The discipline starts at 15 when the bad behavior starts to present itself. When the training should have started taking place at 5. These principles, you imagine, and just look at this. I know these principles work. I've seen them change the lives of thousands of people, right? In the 12-step program. I know we're getting close to our time, but I want to get this out because it's a proven process. We've seen, the 12-step programs, and I'm sure, people know people who have changed their lives going through the 12-step programs, right? These are the same principles. I've just arranged them in a way and deliver them in a way that works for everyday life, right? So imagine this. Johnny meets Sally on college campus. Johnny and Sally were raised in a household that practiced these principles: honesty, hope, faith, courage, integrity, willingness, humility, discipline, forgiveness, acceptance, awareness, and gratitude. So now Johnny and Sally begin a relationship and they interact with each other based on these principles. That relationship turns into a marriage that is based on these principles, that now creates a family that is based on these principles. And now families come together and make a community that is based on these principles. We'll see some different results. I guarantee it.
Mm.
I guarantee it. I know they work.
Mm. Talk, man, talk. There you have it. Principles. Those you said 12 principles.
12 principles, yes. Now
Mm-hmm.
there's other laws, but those are the 12. If we focus on those 12 principles, we'll be in good shape.
So if people want to learn more about those 12 principles, what should they do? How can they go about reaching out to you or purchasing your products?
Well, you can go to my website, TalkManTalk.com, of course, and the principles are listed there. We do offer posters because that's one of the things the school districts are putting posters up so kids, I got to go here. Um, I was just watching Remember the Titans the other night, right? And remember when the two leaders started holding the other team players accountable? That's what you want. You want these because it's amazing that a 15-year-old will listen to another 15-year-old better more so than they will a 30-year-old. That's just they will, right? And so individuals can also go to our course site, which is unlockyourgreatness.net. Unlockyourgreatness.net. And there, the course is there. We offer some private coaching as well. We'll create some plans, but the course is there. And I'm telling you, Coach Mills, out of the progress I've made in my life, this course is my signature, right? It's so far it is the signature because I know how it can change the lives of individuals. Period. Point blank.
Hmm. Well, I just hope that anybody that's watching or listening and maybe feeling a little uncertain about themselves, unhappy where they're at in life, hears your story about how you had hit rock bottom and now you're doing all these incredible things. I hope they find inspiration in that, and it could be a catalyst for them. And
Yes.
so again, I appreciate you sharing your story with us.
Yeah. I man, I'm so grateful for you, Coach Mills. You know, we did this deal yesterday, and just giving some behind the scenes conversation. Yesterday, our the tech wasn't working the way it should, and Coach Mills said, "You know what? Let's do it again. Let's do it again." And I love that, right? Because I think that you really understand the value of what I promote. I mean, it's similar to what you do. You've been in the education arena. You see that we need to do some things different, and so I really applaud the work that you do, and that's what it's going to take. It's going to take a collaboration, right? The one of the things that these 12 principles promote is not only inner peace, self-government for the individual, but common unity for our communities, school communities. So now it takes the opinions out. A counselor, a teacher, or a parent can all talk about honest. They can all question a student about integrity, and it's the same message. The message is consistent.
Mhm. Well, all right. Well, again, I appreciate you. I appreciate your flexibility, that, hey, you're available today.
Yeah.
Uh, with the issues that happened yesterday with our tech issues and everything. And, I just felt compelled, like, no, I want the message to get out. And, you know, everybody that I invite on here, y'all have a great message. And so I
Yeah.
want to make sure that your message is clear and people can understand it
Yeah.
without any difficulty. And so again, I just appreciate your flexibility, and it went great this morning. You just dropped so much wisdom on us. And so again, thank you so much for coming on.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, there you have it, folks. Change happens one person at a time, 1 second at a time. Let's go.